All right, the time is now 7:11. I'll call the meeting to order, the Town of Milton School Building Committee on May 12th. So typically at the beginning of every meeting, we do a roll call vote. So with me in the room is Tim Lombard.
Present.
All right, online, Mark Loring,
Present.
Scott Tereshak, who's on as iPhone. Yep, appreciate it, Mark. And then Akra Bong
Present.
and Sean O'Rourke. So we do have a quorum. Second thing on the agenda is citizen speak. So there's nobody in the room right now. So let me just double check the attendee list. Sorry, working off two computers, one in the room, one there. All right, only one attendee, and I don't think Miss Carroll's wants to speak as citizen speak. So move on. The item 3 is approval of past meeting minutes. So I had I was tied up this week, so I had PMA develop the meeting minutes. I don't think they got distributed to everybody. So I'm just going to table them because we don't have those there or ready. So save that for our next meeting, which we'll touch base on. Item 4 and 5 is the same. It's old business, so discussion. Module 1 update. Just give me a second. I'm just going to pull up a spreadsheet or schedule, just kind of walk everybody through kind of where we're at. All right. And Mark, just confirming you can see, yep, I can see it on the screen here, so we're good. So, yeah, as you guys are aware, at the beginning of May, we started into MSBA's module 1, which is called their eligibility period. So the first thing and the easiest thing that's there is the ICC, which is due essentially at the end of the month. The ICC is the initial compliance certification, which is basically this document here. It's basically almost like a contract. It only requires signatures from, we'll go to the bottom, I believe it's school committee.
Yeah, I think it's superintendent, school committee, and town administrator.
Yeah, town administrator. So thanks. So, with this, school committee has this on their agenda, the select board has it on their agenda. So essentially by the end of the month, we'll have this submitted and have our first kind of box checked off with MSBA. So, and again, this is kind of their standard agreement that they're asking us to sign. So this will be done essentially by the end of the month. The formation of the school building committee was passed at town meeting in February. We have to get I believe the school committee, Mark, is going to be appointing a principal as part of that and someone with MC PPO certification. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe Katie Blake. Again, I also have MC PPO certification, so those are both those capacities. But I think Katie Blake is going to be the MC PPO rep, and they'll assign one of the principals as well. We're waiting for the new superintendent to come on board too to just fully assign that.
Yeah, and the other one that the next, go ahead, Tim.
Is that for the interim position, Mark?
Yeah, John Valen, who starts in half a month.
And is there any concern about that being signed by interim superintendent, or that's not an issue?
I don't believe so.
They have all the authority of a regular superintendent. So Regina Watts is currently the interim for the next 18 days, and she can sign this no problem. Has all the legal authority.
Okay,
Good. The next kind of module that's on here is the enrollment projection, that's on there. So, Mark, I think that's one that's gonna have, essentially a lot of input, from school committee, or the district, for parts of that. And what I've tried to do is, the portions of this flow chart that's here, just so everybody knows, and I'll send this out to everybody. I was basically trying to lay out a schedule of these milestones that we have to do. So the ICC formation of school building committee, online enrollment projections, the maintenance documents that we're working with Tom McCarthy on, and then the funding for the feasibility study. So the good thing is, the ICC at the end of this month will be complete. Formation of school building committee, once we have the final members identified, will be complete. The feasibility study, or the funding for it is complete. We passed that at town meeting, so the money's already appropriated. So basically what I'm looking for is, for us, is, this online enrollment projection and maintenance, documentation, that we've got to get in there. The timelines for these, pull it out a little bit. Starting with the days that they had. Didn't extend all the way over. I'll have to refix the extents of that, but essentially what my goal is, I'm aiming, as I said at our past meetings, aiming for essentially September to get all this stuff done. So what I've done in addition to that is kind of lay out what our meeting schedule is going to look like essentially over the summer. And knowing people are going to be traveling and stuff like that, these will all be hybrid meetings. So if people are around town, we can, be in person, but knowing over the summer, including myself, we're going to have kind of hectic travel schedules. What I tried to do is lay them out every 3 weeks. That was kind of the rhythm that we used to do. The nice thing with it is we get 2 in June. We skip over the 4th of July holiday, so it gives us kind of a good break there. And then we come back for 2 more in August. And, with a 3-week kind of rhythm to it, if something were to come up that we needed to, have a subsequent meeting, there's enough gap in there that, we're not meeting every 2 weeks to overburden ourselves or anything like that. And this will kind of line us up, hopefully, to have everything done by the fall in order to go to the module 2, which would be that, the forming of the team. So, just kind of brief overview of that stuff and open it up, see if anybody has any questions or anything.
not that it should change anything, I know that on this one it does. The other, but generally that was good to me.
Yeah. Anybody else online? Oh, Mark, I say I'm you. Yep.
Yeah, I can provide an update on some things we're doing.
Yeah.
Related to module 1. So essentially the educational questionnaire, educational profile questionnaire part of it, which I think is what you were talking about in terms of the enrollment stuff. Because that is a document that we have made into kind of a Google Doc, shared that with interim superintendent Watts, Tom McCarthy. We'll have maybe a small piece in it, and then I think Regina is sharing it with John Redden and some other folks to fill it in. So that's something I'm taking on, actively working with the staff on. Talked to Regina today when I met with her right before finance. So that is moving along. The timeline we are giving we want to give the district is what exactly? I want to say like end of June, beginning of July. Or do we want to say?
So we've got 90 days essentially for it from May 1st. So, call it 3 months. So that would be August 1st. So yes, I would say ideally mid-June, just to give some breathing room in there in case something comes up. Mid-June and end of June would be fine too.
Okay. Yeah, so that is one. I also flagged for her the operations and maintenance plan, and I talked briefly with Tom McCarthy about that at town meeting. But is that, Sean, have you connected with Tom on that, or is that?
I
Did it take
had
a while?
tried, yeah, I had tried to connect it with Tom early on and 100% my fault. I got sidetracked with a couple things, but Mark, if you want to champion the educational profile one, I'll do the one for the maintenance and stuff and get in touch with Tom.
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay.
And then in terms of the membership, obviously, yes, you mentioned previously before the meeting started, Selena, Dr. Miranda is no longer on school building committee. We're meeting next Wednesday to start the process of identifying committee assignments. And so at that point, we'll identify who the other school committee member is, probably sometime early to mid-June.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Aqua, Scott, any questions on this?
No questions from me.
No, me neither. Thanks for putting together the outline. Looks good.
Okay. All right, and then, essentially what I'll try to do with this overall timeline, I'll put together, this is just for module one, but what I'd like to try to do is, take a shot and, I might reach out to a couple of you guys, to help, like an overall project timeline, what I mean? So we've got, currently we've got module one pretty much laid out. We've knocked off the longest item there for the funding in February, which was good. But looking into module two, figuring out when we're gonna have advertisements for an OPM, work with MSBA to get on their schedule for a designer selection. And I mean, my goal, like I said, the goal to get through module one is, September. And I'd like to try to get a team formed similar to what we did last year, by Christmas, OPM on board, architect on board. So come January, we hit the ground running as part of this feasibility study. So, and then what I'd like to do is once we onboard them, even before that, have a timeline that they're working to, because we're gonna want to line up, when we want to aim for a debt exclusion vote again to get it on everybody's radar. And it's not going to be next year, but it will probably be in 2027 at some point. So understanding what the sequence of events that are going to be leading up to that vote, advertise as much as we can just to get it in front of people so it doesn't come as a quote unquote surprise or a little rushed. So just be aware of that. We'll probably start jumping into that at each meeting and just doing a forecast of everything all the way out. Any other questions on the MSBA kind of old business stuff that's there? Seeing none. All right, move on to new business, which is the BSC survey. So as one of the things that's left over from the land swap that's there are parcels of land on Randolph Ave that town council has asked us to get essentially boundary surveys for that were not on record. So with the remaining funding that we have in the account for a school building committee, what I'd like to do is utilize some of that to cover the cost of the survey work, and this would basically finalize the documentation that they need to do to kind of finalize the land swap and put everything through for, I think it's the deeds. So partially with that, and we might not be able to vote on this time because again, I forgot to submit to everyone the proposal from BSC Group, but I wanted to put it on everybody's radar. It was, I think, about 35,000 to do that work, and we've got plenty of funding left over.
Yeah, I want to say we have close to 40.
But we have probably more than that.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, with the funding that we got previously, the money we had allocated for the OPM, the OPM's, PMA didn't really utilize all that, so there's a decent amount of funding left over. So I'll forward that documentation for everybody so everyone can kind of see what the what the extents of that survey are, what the cost of it is. The one other thing that will come up that's kind of linked to this too is, whatever additional funding that we've had that was allocated, all of that was allocated mostly out of free cash. And with the 1.5 million that we have funded, that's gonna be bonded for the feasibility study. Whatever leftover funding that we have, we may want to consider, refunding that back into the town. And, that would give the town, whatever we have left over back as essentially free cash that they can get certified this year and redistribute, stuff like that. So I just kind of bring that up for everybody, just so you're aware. I'll probably touch base with Amy Dexter. And, figure out what those balances are and compare it to, after the BSC survey, what we have left over. If that makes sense for everyone. Cool. Yep. Nothing, all right, sorry, it beeped in here, Scott. Yeah, the one last thing that I got here is the overall project timeline. I think we went over as part of module 1 update. So, the kind of necessity of this meeting was one, to kick us off and get us, back on kind of a scheduled rhythm over the next couple of weeks. Update everyone, kind of what we have on the horizon for, deadlines that are coming up in the next 30 days. And then, just basically, touch base with everybody. And at our next meeting, after the committee appointments are made, we'll probably have a larger roster of people on here too. So, I appreciate everybody jumping on for this one. So unless anybody has any questions about, project timeline or anything like that, I'll move on to future meeting dates. Seeing none, all right. So the future meeting dates, as I mentioned previously, our next meeting would essentially be June 2nd, which is, again, is a Monday night. So soon, assume that works for everybody, holding the same time. Actually, one other one that's on my mind too, with the committee members, there's gonna be appointed new members. I just want to double check with everybody, or at least who's on tonight. Is everybody good, basically, committing to being on the school building committee again for another year? So Tim?
Yes.
Yeah. Mark, you don't have a choice. You get appointed, or, whatever, school committee tells you. Scott, are you good for another year?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and Aqua?
Yes, I am.
Okay, yeah, I'll relay that. So, as you guys are probably aware, we have a new town moderator, so us that are appointed by the town moderator.
Oh, we have to be reappointed.
I don't know if we have to be reappointed. I assume it would probably be safe if we are, because, Bob made the, moderator has made the, previous appointments, so moderator Dylan. I'm hoping we'll keep the same appointments. I haven't checked with her. That's actually a good thing.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Hey, for the June 2nd date,
Mhm.
is that in this room?
No idea yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll confirm, like, now that we've got kind of, we're back to a rhythm
Yeah.
again. I want to get, ideally, I wanted to do the old fire station where we were before. But that's being fit out right now. They were doing some audio visual fit outs for it to make the, have the cameras in the room and stuff. I'll find a timeline on that. That's ideally right, like their meetings. This one just happened to be available because there's a lot going on in the town right now. All right. I think with that, that covers the overall agenda. So again, quick, easy meeting, just wanted to check in with anybody. So there any questions from anyone?
Can I move a motion for adjournment?
You can make that motion. Anybody want to second it?
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none. All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Tim Lombard,
Yes.
Mark Loring.
Yes.
All right, Scott Lombard, Scott Tereshak, sorry,
Yes.
and Aqua Bomb.
Yes.
All right, great, Sean O'Rourke, yes, thank you guys, and we'll see you in 3 weeks, all right?